Welcome to the 145 Rural Podcast, where we are here to strengthen music careers and communities one song at a time. And now, here's your host, Jacob Wing. Yay!
Hi, everybody, and today I have Mr. Hank Donovan with us from Rattlesnake Cables, and he has been very kind enough to stop and have a word with us and talk about all the things we might need to know. So we'll just get right into it, if you're okay with that.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So the very first thing and the real main reason that I wanted to get into this is what makes a good cable for an instrument, for anybody that would be using cable? What sets a good cable apart from a bad cable?
Well, I mean, I think the difference is always about durability and tone. Those are your main criteria. So if your tone is there with cable capacitance not being an issue where it's like darkening your tone. So to avoid cable capacitance, that's one thing with darkening your tone. You don't want to have that happen. And then durability is the cable going to be able to handle being on the road, being stepped on, run over by amps, and all that stuff. So,
right.
So those two have to be at a decent level. If one of those, if it's great tone, but it's like cheaply built, it's going to fall apart. If it's super burly, but it's got high capacitance, then it will affect your guitar signal.
That makes a lot of sense. Is there anything with like introducing sound, like outside, like buzzing or sound?
Yep.
Have you ever run into that kind of thing?
Yep. So that's internal shielding that you'll want. So again, where when I say a cheap cable, when you look at what costs money in a cable, it's the copper.
Oh yeah, that
right?
makes sense.
So the more copper that you have in there, the more expensive the cable is going to be. So the higher the gauge is, the conductor is going to be in the middle, which is a durability issue and the signal transfer issue. Because if you have like a nano hair, you're gonna bend it like this, it's gonna break, right?
Right.
So the other part is the shields around that conductor. Once you have a cheap cable, they'll start skimping on that shield. So now you're going to have like areas of not or open coverage where there'll be gaps and holes. So like our cable is braided shield inside. So it's like this mesh, which makes it that durable feel to it. But no matter how you bend it, you're never going to get a gap. And there's different kinds. There's braided shield, and then there's a spiral shield where all the strands are going in one direction.
Right.
And if you're twisting that spiral could open up, and then that gap is where radio frequencies potentially can leak in.
I had no
power.
idea. Incredible.
Yeah. So,
I mean, as a guitar player or whatever you're using for it, you never think of those kind of things. You're just like, I've heard a couple of those terms like the braiding and why that might make a difference. Mm-hmm. But that's the first time I think it's ever clicked.
Oh, yeah.
That is really good. Thank you so much. That is a huge insight. As an owner of your business, I've seen and I've read on your website through Rattlesnake that you guys make an emphasis that your parts are milled in the United States and it's hand assembled. Can you tell, I know there's two separate parts there. Can you tell me why you think that makes such a big difference in your end product?
Well, I mean, it's just, our cable, we work with wire mills in the United States. So that's something where I just felt was important, just to keep jobs going in the U.S.
Yeah, it's a huge thing.
So we definitely like to work with U.S. milled cable. And that's a challenge. It's always a very difficult thing. You can go overseas and get cable for, a tenth of the price, frankly.
I bet.
It's great. It's great work. We work with family-based businesses that do the milling. So it's like, the one that we're really spending a lot of time and effort and money with has been really awesome to work with in California. And, that's it's an important thing, even though like plugs, it's like you could source those from different places. There's certain things that, you just can't avoid. So it's like, as long as the meat of the cable, which is the cable, is from, milled in the United States, that gives us a good feeling. And, they're all hand assembled up here in Missoula and, by our team. So that's cool too.
That's honestly, it was one of the first things I heard about. And then I had somebody come through the studio they just talking about your cables, these Rattlesnake cables. Like, what are you talking about? Why? It's unusual for somebody to bring that up without being prompted. Oh. I'm like, okay, well, you're talking about it. It must mean something. I look into it. They're made here in Missoula, and I about lost my mind. And then I got my first one, and I was blown away of like the difference between the quality of what I was using before to that was like, well, it's like when you look back and you have that moment of, oh, I think I've made a mistake. I've been doing things wrong, and it clicks. And it was a great moment. Yeah, it was a huge moment. we got to talk a little bit beforehand before we started filming, and you were talking about you had been a musician first and foremost. How had that influenced or worked its way or maybe even helped when it came to start building cables and doing that work?
Yeah, it's a strange parallel journey between the two. There's also an occupational change where I was a web developer and a programmer for many years, right? Those all converged into Rattlesnake just because I was a musician. I was a kind of a nerdy electronics guy, dabbled in pedals and whatnot. So I just, just messed with a few items. And then as a developer, I worked in a virtual world, which absolutely, now in hindsight, I absolutely hated it because it was so virtual. It was meaningless. I was just typing stuff and I was making things, and a year they're obsolete. They're on hard drives. They just go away. I wanted to make something tangible, and that's what led to, oddly enough, cables, which wasn't like oh, that's what we're going to do next. I just happened to build a couple of cables, and enjoyed it, and immediately I had band members from a variety of things were just like, what is that? And then they were saying, can you make me one? And I was like, suddenly I'm like, oh yeah, I can make you one, and then it just started to blossom like on its own.
It's the most natural thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, it was very weird.
That's when you've got something right there, is when people start, can I get one of those?
Yeah.
Huh, that's fantastic. The next thing I wanted to ask you about was, you guys offer a lifetime warranty, which is unusual these days. It's rare in modern America and what we've built now to have a company actually offer that and honor a lifetime warranty. Is that a struggle? And what went into the choice of offering that and doing that?
Well, I mean, in cable world, that is kind of a common thing. You'll see that a lot. But I think we do a good job. So we don't have a lot of those warranty issues.
Right.
And I always like working with people that even in their mind fall outside the warranty. We even had dogs eating cables, and they just
I can imagine.
Yeah, and they just tell me that their dog ate their cable and was like all bummed out. And I was like, we'll send it. We'll put two ends on it. And now you're going to have like two cables where they ate through the middle. And they'd be like, what do I owe you? And I was like, don't worry about it. And they'll send it back with dog treats.
Oh my, you're kidding me.
We do stuff like that all the time when we get them. But like I said, it's not that often. It's pretty rare, in fact. And it's just one of those things. It's just, I'd rather have a customer be loyal to the brand, and because they believe in the company and the product and the service we offer. So it's a small price to pay. It's just like, I could be stingy and say, well, your dog ate it, tough luck,
right? Whatever.
And okay, well, you're going to send us the cable. We're going to make, two cables out of the one cable. I made that person's day. They're going, if it was an accident, it wasn't their fault, and, there's stuff like that where it's like, I know their word of mouth is going to tell people, and that, to get other customers knowing that we'll take care of them is a big thing. There's other companies that do weird stuff where it's like you send one in, they just send you back. It's all just very like corporate.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
Whatever.
Yeah.
I definitely like to work with people and like just tell them I got them. Don't worry about it.
No, the interpersonal connection. It's that next little step that you've made a customer for life right there.
I mean, it hurts on our bottom line. We don't want to be doing that all the time. But it's at the end, it actually gains.
It's the long term view versus the short term view. Yeah, mm-hmm. It makes a lot of sense, and that's one of the reasons that those kind of things are why when I first started as an engineer or as a guitarist or whatever it may be, when you start to realize that cables make more of a difference than you think. And it's time to change them out. You make that kind of, it's okay to make that kind of investment. Put a little bit more money out there because it's going to look more long-term than short-term.
That's the biggest challenge we have too. Someone will spend $3,000 on an amp and $2,000 on a guitar, and they'll buy a $5 cable, and you're like, and they'll be like, well, it's just a cable. And I'm like, well, it's just a cable, but
that's one of our proudest episodes I think we've done for the 145 Rural is that we did a whole episode on what sound priority, what you should really be invested in. And cables wound up being number 3 out of like 10. Oh, yeah. And it really wanted to emphasize that you don't think about it, but it makes so much more difference.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's an accessory. So that's the same as a guitar pick and a strap. Mm-hmm. But it's like...
But it's not. It's part of the sound. In your mind, you think it's an accessory, but it's part of the sound.
Yeah. So it's an important piece. And people that get it definitely get it. And then there's a group of people that don't get it that eventually will get
exactly. It's part of that learning curve.
It's part of the learning curve.
It's how you know, like, how far along are. Oh, okay, you get it. You got it.
Also, cables aren't fun and cool, and we try to make them a little fun.
I was gonna say,
cool.
yes, I've seen it. You guys have done pretty good, especially with your social media stuff that you guys have done, and the giveaways, and just the braiding and the colors you guys offer.
Yeah,
you guys found a way to make it fun.
Yeah. So that helps that too, where it goes beyond just an accessory,
right?
You know? So it's a thing that people need. Yeah,
fantastic.
Hi there, and welcome to the ad break. We're just going to take a moment to let everybody know about our community of growing members, and if you'd like to be a part of that, just look at the info below, and there will be a click there for an email sign-up to join in and get your voice heard. As well, if you're enjoying this content, please join our Patreon at patreon.com/145rural. There you can join any of our groups, and you can add to the discussion of what topics we will choose that will help you and hopefully future members of our groups, as well as join monthly Q&As and other such benefits. Again, that's patreon.com/145rural, and we look forward to seeing you there. Now, back to that regularly scheduled episode, and enjoy that content. Thanks again.
What was it like watching your company start from where you were just kind of that, you were talking about that natural growth where it just kind of became a thing over time? What was it like when it started to expand and grow? What was that like for you?
It was amazing, terrifying, and difficult, and fulfilling and depressing. It's all of those things. So when we go from a concept to a business where you decide this is the direction we're going. So, I mean, I still needed to pay my mortgage, and I have kids and all that. And it's what you basically call, a hobby business at first. First it was just an idea, then turned into a hobby, and then turned into a hobby business. But then to convert it from a hobby business to that's the thing that we're doing is a very hard leap. And that's a scary leap. And that happened in about 2000, mentally 2018, 19, definitely 2020 was the year Amy, my wife, and I took our first paycheck. It was the year Max quit his job and worked with us full time.
Oh, that's a big year. Wow.
Yeah. And, 3 months later, it's a pandemic.
Of course.
So that's part of the terrifying thing. But to see it when you committed to the business and say, this is the way we're going is a pretty amazing feeling. Where we just let go of all the other things, and we knew we were going to take a sacrifice, and then to really focus all of our energy into it. And then when you look back at it now, we're still trying to climb the hill, but you look backwards and go, wow, look where we came from. It's very satisfying.
That's amazing.
But we have so far to go, though.
Isn't it that's how you know you're talking to somebody who really believes in what they're doing, because it's never about, yeah, it's amazing where you're coming. It's always what's coming next, or on that next step. Like, oh yeah, that's great, but guess what's coming up? Or
I feel like we're just starting,
right?
Honestly. So I feel like we're at like step one. That's the one step was 10 years, but now it's like, okay, now let's get stuff done.
And it's funny in the corporate world, you hear it so much that it becomes almost cliche, but with your company, I absolutely believe that I guess what I'm saying is, the more you look into it, the more that you reach out and meet more musicians, you're surprised that you're not hearing more about Rattlesnake. And you're like, yep, okay, it's going to. It's going to catch on. That fire is going to keep getting bigger and bigger. So, yeah, I think you're dead on. It's not just the cliche. I bet there is a lot more to go on. I can only imagine the things that are going through your head and
yeah.
I think that's pretty much that. I think we'll take a shift, and now we're going to talk more about your life, if you're okay with that.
Okay.
Fantastic. And take a quick. All right. And just before we go into talking about you and your personal life, I just want to share with these guys here, and then maybe have you answer a quick question about this one. My experience with your company is I had a couple cables that I bought. My wife bought me one for Christmas, and then I kind of knew I was all in. So I decided that I want to get some patch cables because I was building a pedal board. And so I had reached out and made an order. And there was this moment with your customer service where you reached out. You personally reached out to me, not knowing who I was, just as a customer. And I had selected that I wanted to pick it up because it was this option that, like, you can come pick it up. Like, okay. And you're like, yeah, go ahead, come on in. And so I went in to pick up these cables since we were in the same town, and you met me at the door, not somebody else. And then on top of that, as I'm already giddy because I'm meeting Hank Donovan. Oh my goodness! I mean, at this point, you're legendary in my mind. And I know, it's so stupid. But nerds are nerds, right?
All right.
And then you offer me a tour, and you showed me top to bottom the facility, the people doing the handwork, some of your new tools, everything that was going on. Absolutely blew my mind. I went home and I must have absolutely made my wife's ears bleed with how giddy I was as a schoolgirl. Like, you won't believe what happened. Instant lifelong customer. So the segue there I'm trying to get to is that customer service was not only great, but just next level. Is that something you guys try to incorporate into your business plan, or how does customer service make a difference for you guys?
Oh yeah, I mean, customer service is everything. It's about creating that community and establishing the connection to everyone, building it slowly. So you can have a great product and blast this out. It doesn't matter as long as you have that base. And if you have that base is going to support you. So they're going to spread the word for you. They're going to keep ordering from you. So it's a big thing. And both my wife and myself worked in a restaurant for years at different restaurants. Really? And we worked together at a restaurant. And Rattlesnake's really best built on a restaurant kind of philosophy. A lot of things there that are very similar. It's, when you see a crowd outside of a busy restaurant, you think that's good. That's just one check where it says, okay, that's potentially good. You walk in, you smell the food, it smells good. Okay, that's another check. My boss used to always say, you eat with your eyes first. So the presentation needs to be good. By the time you actually eat it, you're already convinced it's the best steak you ever had or whatever. And then, the customer service is great. Everything starts building up on that and maintaining consistency. That's the other real hard thing with a restaurant. You come back the next time, it's different. It kind of sucks. So all of these things I've said, like our social media is that crowd outside, like the when you sit down is when you open the box, or your buyer experience on the website. That's like you're playing this cable, you haven't got it yet. You're already convinced it's great. All the experience factors of how you're treated during your whole process, pre-purchase, post-purchase, all of that needs to be good. And then consistency. You order again, is it similar? The whole thing, the box, the presentation, is it similar like the last time? Or when you tell a friend about it and they say, oh, I got the box and I had the thing and I got a video and blah, blah, blah. Like I did too, right? So those are all things I've learned from a restaurant, and customer service is really like where it's at. And it's an art that's like totally just getting destroyed and lost today.
Amen to that.
And
yeah.
It's just the way it is, which is a great opportunity for us, because I feel like we can do great customer service where no one else is really doing it. Speed too. That was the other thing. It's like some people take 2-3 weeks before you get your custom thing. Ours ship out that day or the next day. Right. And you're like, people are just blown away. It just, just always blow people away is like what we're trying to do all the time. And it means our foot's on the gas all the time, and it's exhausting. It's mentally tiring. But, every day our team is like so awesome that everyone's stoked on it. Everyone's, very appreciative of like what we have and like customers coming in. And like I said, everyone who works there works in the service industry. At some point. I'd rather hire someone who's a dishwasher at a restaurant than someone who's got 10 years soldering experience. Right. Because I just wanted to have that sense of urgency and prioritizing and then working as a team. Is like the restaurant and service industry has all of those checks covered.
That is genius. Yeah. I mean, that's something you can't teach. Customer service is something it really is a person and their personality, but you can teach somebody to solder. But
yeah,
that's genius.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, fantastic. Thank you for offering it. And again, from the bottom of my heart, thanks for the tour I got. I still love it to this day. So that's fantastic. So moving on, let's just talk about you. So where were you born?
I was born in Billings.
Billings, Montana. I did not know that. What was it like growing up there?
I didn't. I was just born there.
You just said that was it and we were gone. That was packed up and we're done.
Yeah, I've lived in all different places in the state. So born in Billings, lived in Missoula twice, lived in Great Falls, lived in Kalispell, lived in Lakeside, lived in Kalispell twice. So yeah, been all around. I've never lived in Helena or Bozeman.
Wow,
that's it. But
we have a lot in common. That is funny. I've lived in Billings, Bozeman, Helena, Kalispell twice. I mean, and Butte.
Oh yeah,
And it's part of being like, as somebody that wants to get around in the state, is just, it's so many different cultures just in this area. It's funny, but
Missoula's my favorite.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
Yeah, Missoula's my favorite. And I was a little kid when I lived in Missoula, and I still have very fond memories of being ages like 1 to 8. So, going to university as a little kid, and like, it was just awesome. A lot of things to do in Missoula versus other places.
I could not agree more.
Yeah.
Right. So you've been all over the place. What was the moment that you knew you want to start music? How did you get your introduction to music? I guess we could start there.
Introduction in playing music.
Yeah. So like, was it somebody in your family was a musician, or what was just one day?
No, I guess, so that's what I was trying to break it down between like being a music fan and a musician.
Right.
So, Great Falls, I was junior high school, and I was way into metal. Super. I was just
what kind of air? What years are we talking?
We're talking like early '80s, mid '80s. So
okay. Like thrash metal kind of stuff. Or
no, just like Motley Crue.
Okay.
Ozzy Osbourne.
Oh yeah,
big time. And then I remember the first time I heard Metallica.
Oh yeah,
It changed my brain.
Oh my god, you were just Oh my god.
So then I moved to Kalispell, and I was way into just metal, And I was listening to Garage Days, revisited by Metallica.
Oh my god, I just pulled that up the other day, and
So there's a Misfits song on there, and there's
a couple actually, I think.
Yep, 2 of them, Last Crest and Green Hell.
Oh yeah.
And I'm listening to this in Spanish class, and now I'm a sophomore in high school, and there's this I was scared of this guy, super punk rock skater guy. I would never even talk to him. And he sat behind me, and he just looks over my shoulder. I had a cassette tape, and he goes, "That is garbage." And I was just like, "What?" And he goes, "You should listen to the original." And then for whatever reason, at the time, I didn't even know those were covers.
Right. They didn't announce it. They just put it out and said, "Yeah, I know what you mean."
And so he hands me Earth AD, which had Green Hell on there. And at that moment, I shifted to like punk rock, and then the whole world of like, and then the opposite of like that, I was like DRI, thrash metal, suicidal tendencies.
Oh my goodness.
Right? But then the flip side, like the Smiths, the Cure, Depeche Mode,
right?
Echo and the Bunnymen, and I was Bauhaus. I was Joy Division. I was just so into like this, and then I went to this goth like doomer stuff, and the Cure, Robert Smith.
Oh my god, right.
Is the reason why I play guitar.
You were kidding me.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
So
that man is a genius.
First songs I ever played were, with my friends, and we were trying to learn Cure songs. And I got a guitar, and I started trying to figure out Cure songs. And that was the first time where I was like an obsessed music listener to a person that was trying to like deconstruct songs, figure out how can you play them.
Right.
And then start decoding that. And that's where I became like a beginning musician. So that would have been in, 90.
Right.
91. So, and then those were the first conversations of like, we should make a band, and, like we can play Cure songs or whatever, like try to make our own songs. And, just wallowed in that for years, because I was in Kalispell at that time. There was no drummers. There was
nothing. Well,
nothing.
Even in a rural, we cater to smaller rural music. That's a lifelong struggle finding anybody like that in the smaller community, especially back then. Yeah. And there wasn't like Craigslist, and it's like you could put out a newspaper ad, but then
until I moved to Missoula in '93. That's when you suddenly started like, wow, there's actually musicians. There's a drummer. I know a drummer over there. And it was just like, oh man, we could actually form a band. And,
right.
And then things were happening. Yeah. And that was the whole different direction.
And I think that goes for a lot of people where they come from like a small community, and there's always someplace there's like a community that they weren't aware of. And Missoula for us was that, where there's an actual community of musicians. Yeah. And as you slowly work your way in there, just by knowing a friend or a friend of a friend, all of a sudden you're become part of this bigger thing you didn't know existed. And I love that. Yeah. But how did you, you kind of touched upon it before that. How did you really develop a love of making cables? At this point you've been doing it this long. Is it just that it's profitable, or is there a bit of heart in that making the cables?
It was pretty early on. It was just the fact that, my quest from working with computers and making something virtual to something tangible and real and the idea of making something that someone is actually using to create their art, right? So that was just that alone is super fulfilling. I could never get that from a website or working in a restaurant or anything. Just knowing I'm aiding in some kind of tool to do something, right? And that was very satisfying and fulfilling, and that made it really easy to transition into like, how can we make them more? How do we make them better? How do different offerings and just anything that helps a musician do their thing. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Oh, beyond that, I think I've pretty much gotten a lot of great information on you. I think you've helped a lot of people that maybe, especially like myself, you don't think about cables. I think you've really opened up some eyes and some brains probably. Might have blown up learning some of those things. So I really want to thank you so much for your time and coming in to talk to us.
Awesome.
Thank you. And then as you guys, if you know, whatever you're listening, if you're listening to this on a podcast or if you're watching this on YouTube, I always have Rattlesnake Cables linked below. So go ahead and click on that if you want to pick up some cables. And of course, if you get a chance to go, I'll have their socials below too. So you can go check out, they have an amazing social presence. So go check that out as well. So anything else that you'd like to plug or talk about?
No, I'm good.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you. See you guys later.